She laughed with her friends while trying on an outfit for the night with a colleague at the bar. But when she saw me, her face froze. I'm Ryan, 34, an architect based in Phoenix. I've always been the dependable guy, first to arrive, last to leave, polite to a fault. I draft buildings for a living, which means I also have a tendency to overplan everything. Spreadsheets, routines, structure, maybe too much structure. But for a long time, Claire said she liked that about me. Said I made her feel anchored. That night, I left work early for the first time in months. I can't explain why. There wasn't an emergency or a missed appointment. Just a feeling. I was halfway through revising a rendering for a hillside property when I realized I hadn't seen Claire all week during daylight. She'd been booked solid. Client consultations, late gym classes, wellness workshops. You name it. We'd only exchanged brief conversations in the hallway or half-asleep kisses before bed. So, for no clear reason, I closed my laptop, grabbed my keys, and left. The sun was still high, throwing long shadows across the red stucco homes on our street as I pulled into our driveway. The porch lights hadn't even come on yet. I walked through the front door expecting silence. Maybe the faint hum of the dishwasher or a podcast playing from Claire's home office. Instead, I heard laughter, voices, female voices, music playing low. Some indie pop track she usually only played when friends were over. I froze in the entryway, keys still in my hand. A shoebox sat open on the floor. High heels scattered across the rug like some rushed audition. Claire and two of her friends, Jen and Laurel, were gathered in the living room. Claire stood near the hallway mirror, half-zipped in a tight black dress I hadn't seen before. She was laughing, flushed with wine or excitement or both, while Jen adjusted the straps on her shoulders and Laurel held up two different pairs of earrings. They didn't hear me at first. Then Claire turned, and the change on her face was instant. She smiled when she saw me, but it was wrong, tight, performative. Her whole posture stiffened like she'd been caught shoplifting. And in that instant, I wasn't looking at my wife. I was looking at a stranger who had something to hide. "Oh, hey, babe," she said, voice slightly too high. "You're home early." I nodded, stepping in further. "Wanted to surprise you." And then I saw it. First, the white envelope on the kitchen counter, half tucked beneath a magazine. It was tilted just enough that I could read the hotel's letterhead, Redfield at Central, a boutique hotel downtown. Below it, a folded receipt printed on thick cardstock. Room service. Breakfast for two. Date. Sunday, 9:41 a.m. Room 517. She had told me she was in Sedona that weekend, attending some industry seminar with her wellness brand partners. I even remembered her texting me photos of a group circle with yoga mats and a grainy landscape *T of a canyon I now suspected was pulled from Pinterest. My eyes shifted to her jacket tossed over a dining chair. A key card slipped out of the pocket and clattered softly to the floor. Claire practically dove for it. "Oh, that's not mine," she said quickly. "Jen must have left that in my coat when she borrowed it last week. Right, Jen?" Jen blinked like she had just been dragged underwater. Yeah. I guess I must have." Neither of them sounded convincing. "And Laurel?" She turned away and pretended to be fascinated by the wine label. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I walked into the kitchen and poured a glass of water I never ended up drinking. My hands were steady, but my chest felt like it was being slowly compressed by a hydraulic press. I stood there for a moment too long, pretending to read the back of a cereal box. Claire, trying to fill the silence, chirped, "We're just getting ready for a night out. Work thing, you know? The usual." "The usual," I echoed. Jen and Laurel made their exit not long after, claiming they needed to head to their place to change, which made no sense, given they'd just tried on 3 different outfits in our living room. Claire walked them to the door with a performance-grade cheeriness, like everything was fine. But when she closed the door and turned back to me, her mask cracked just a little. She offered me that same strained smile. "You sure you're okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. "Fine. Just tired." She paused, studying me. For a second, I thought she was going to say something real. Something like an apology or a confession or at least an explanation that didn't involve Jen conveniently leaving behind a hotel keycard. But she didn't. Instead, she slipped into the bathroom to finish her makeup. I could hear the hum of the vanity lights and the occasional sound of a drawer opening and closing. Her heels clicked across the hallway like punctuation marks in a sentence I couldn't read yet. When she emerged 20 minutes later, she looked like someone I didn't know. New dress, heels, makeup, a different perfume, sweeter, heavier. One she only used on anniversaries or weddings. "You going somewhere nice?" I asked, careful to keep my voice level. She smiled again. "Just that wine bar I told you about. We're meeting with some agency reps." "Anyone I know?" She hesitated a beat too long. "Just Laurel and Jen. Maybe a couple others." I nodded again. She didn't ask if I wanted to come. Didn't offer to stay home. Didn't say "I love you" before she left. I watched her get into her car from the front window. Her taillights disappeared down the street, swallowed by the desert dusk. For a long time after that, I stood in the hallway in silence, staring at the coat still draped over the chair. The keycard was gone. So was the receipt. But I had seen enough. Not proof, not exactly. But something had shifted. There's a moment in design where a building no longer feels like potential, it just is. That night, something in my marriage shifted from a question to a statement. And I wasn't sure yet what it meant. But I knew I wasn't imagining things anymore. The human mind is weird. It doesn't always sound alarms when it should. Sometimes it hoards warning signs like souvenirs, stashing them in some forgotten drawer until one day, boom, you open it and everything spills out. After that night, I couldn't stop opening that drawer. I lay in bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to tell myself it was nothing. A key card could mean anything. A receipt doesn't scream betrayal. But somewhere beneath the rational noise, I felt it. The shift. The slow, grinding slide of something foundational giving way. The next morning, Claire was already gone before I woke up. She left a sticky note on the fridge. "Early breakfast with Laurel. Be back by noon." XO. I held the note in my hand longer than necessary. She'd started leaving them more often recently. Not sweet ones. Not the "have a good day, love you" kind. These were logistical, transactional, like I was a roommate she had to coordinate chores with. I stared at the paper and felt something cold settle in my chest. I started noticing things. Or maybe I had noticed them before. But now I let myself see them. Like how she never left her phone face up anymore. Or how she changed her lock screen to a generic beach photo, scrubbing away the picture of us from our trip to Portland last year. There was the new passcode, too more complicated than the old one. I only caught a partial glance once when it lit up at night. A pattern instead of a pin. Not that I'd ever considered snooping before, but now it felt like the phone was some locked door I wasn't allowed to open in my own house. We used to have a shared location tracker. It was her idea, actually. Something about safety and transparency. It had never felt invasive, just practical. Until one day it disappeared. I noticed when I opened the app to check how close she was to home during a dust storm. Her icon, her little bitmoji with the yellow scarf, was gone. "Glitch," she'd said casually. "Must have turned off after the last phone update. I'll fix it." She never did. I started mentally cataloging each change like an architect mapping fault lines. One or two cracks might be cosmetic. But too many and it means structural damage. Take her late-night work calls. They'd started maybe 2 months ago, around 9 or 10 p.m. She'd slip away into the bathroom, close the door quietly, and talk in hushed tones. No running water, no shower, no toothbrush, just whispers. Once, I passed by and caught a snatch of a sentence. "He said I should have stayed longer." She must have heard me freeze outside the door because the next thing I heard was a fake flush, followed by exaggerated toothbrushing. I never said anything. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of the answer. Maybe I was waiting for something undeniable. But the quiet started eating at me. One night, I picked up her gym bag to move it and caught a whiff of something. Cologne. Not mine. Spicy, musky. The kind worn by guys who pay too much for whiskey and cologne. Claire hated scents like that, or at least she used to. Then there were the food orders. Claire never used to eat mushrooms. She said the texture creeped her out. But now, she was ordering truffle fries, mushroom risotto, portobello burgers. All of it delivered from places in neighborhoods she didn't work in. I checked her food delivery history once. I shouldn't have, but I did. And I saw what I expected. Orders for 2. Split appetizers. Double protein bowls. One was customized to leave off cilantro. Something I loved but Claire couldn't stand. The first time I saw her calendar entry for wellness on a Wednesday afternoon, I didn't think anything of it. She freelanced as a brand strategist for wellness startups. But when I saw it again the next week, then again the week after, that's when I checked the address. A yoga studio in a district I knew she had no clients in. A place across town, far enough to be inconvenient. Too far unless there was a reason. I tested her once. "Hey, how was the studio today?" I asked while washing dishes. She blinked. "Studio? Yeah, your wellness appointment. Thought you were going to that place in Roosevelt Row?" "Oh, right. Yeah, it was good. I did sound bath therapy. It was cleansing." Claire has never in her life said the phrase sound bath therapy. I'd swear on that, but I just nodded. I found myself walking on eggshells inside my own house, watching, measuring, listening for inconsistencies in the little things. Her explanations started to feel rehearsed, like she was always 2 steps ahead of where my questions might lead. And sometimes, she was extra sweet, bringing home my favorite bottle of Tempranillo, making chicken parmesan like she used to during our first year of marriage. But the warmth in those moments didn't reach her eyes. And the affection? It wasn't gone, not completely, but it was sparse, cautious. The kind of affection that comes with an asterisk. Our kisses had grown shorter. Her hand would sometimes stiffen in mine like it had somewhere else it wanted to be. And in the quiet moments, those rare windows where we might have once reached for each other out of instinct, she reached for her phone instead. One Saturday, I offered to join her on one of her wellness client days. Told her I'd grab a coffee nearby while she did her session, and we could drive home together. Her reaction was immediate and telling. "Oh, babe, that's sweet, but it's just back-to-back meetings all day. You'd be so bored." I watched her pack her tote that morning and noticed something else. She'd stopped taking her work tablet and instead took only her phone and a fresh change of clothes. She left in athleisure but came back dressed like she'd just stepped out of a dinner downtown. I don't know how long this had been going on. That's the part that haunted me the most. Not just what was happening, but how long I'd failed to notice. Or worse, how long I'd chosen not to notice. I started scrolling through old photos one night while she was asleep. Our cloud account synced automatically, and I saw new uploads that weren't in our shared albums. Photos of interiors I didn't recognize, lounges, dimly lit studios, high-rise windows. None of them had people in them, but the angles were deliberate, private. In one, a glass of red wine sat next to 2 plates. One had shrimp. Claire was allergic to shrimp. I wasn't, but the fork wasn't mine. There was a picture of her in a mirror, taken from a restroom I didn't recognize. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen. Holding her phone up with that same strained smile I saw the night I came home early. In the background, blurry but distinct, was a man's jacket, gray, tailored, thrown over a chair. I zoomed in. The tag said, J. Redmond and Company. Who was that? And why had she saved it to her cloud but hidden it from our shared albums? I didn't sleep that night. My mind was a minefield of half-formed theories and painful déjà vu. I kept replaying moments that used to feel innocent and now felt tainted. That weekend in April when she said she needed space and went to reconnect with herself. The Wednesday she missed my sister's birthday dinner for a client crisis. The time she got home late, her hair damp, her skin smelling like hotel soap. The pattern wasn't just forming, it was already complete. I had just refused to name it. I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I didn't want denials. I didn't want gaslighting or arguments about jealousy or privacy. What I needed was certainty. Evidence. Something unshakable. And something told me that was coming soon. There's a kind of silence that sets in once you stop pretending. Not peace, nothing like that, but a grim, sobering stillness. After weeks of walking in circles, rehearsing hypothetical conversations with Claire, imagining what I'd say or how she'd deny it, something in me just stopped spinning. I wasn't confused anymore. Now I needed confirmation. So on a Thursday afternoon, I left work early again. I told my team I had an off-site inspection, which wasn't entirely a lie. I was going to inspect something all right, just not a building. Claire had told me the night before that she had client engagements all day Thursday. The kind of work that didn't allow texts or calls. So she'd be off the grid for most of it. I told her that was fine. I kissed her goodbye that morning, watched her throw on her sneakers and hoodie, and waved as she pulled out of the driveway. 15 minutes later, I pulled up her calendar on my laptop. I still had access to her synced business account, which she'd never revoked, probably forgot. She'd always marked her entries vaguely: studio session, wellness prep, creative flow. But today, the location pin was set to South Mill Studios, a creative co-working hub downtown, a place for freelancers and digital nomads to meet, collaborate, host workshops. I'd heard her mention it once before, something about the energy being good for focus. I packed a camera. Not a big one, nothing obvious, just an old mirrorless I used to take project site photos. Then I drove. I got there around 3:10 p.m. and parked a few blocks away, careful not to be seen. The studio building was sleek and modern. Glass walls, rooftop deck, mural on the sidewall. I waited across the street near a bike rack, pretending to scroll through my phone. Claire's car was already in the lot. For the next hour, I watched people come and go. Young professionals, creatives with messenger bags, a few pairs of people chatting with laptops under their arms. Then, around 4 p.m, I saw her, Claire. She stepped out of the building with a tall, dark-haired man in a crisp button-down shirt. I knew his face, not from life but from photos. Buried deep in her old albums was a team retreat from 2 years ago. His name was Eli Martinez, a UX designer she'd once described as quirky but intense. I remembered her laughing once that he drank raw egg smoothies and practiced Tai Chi in the office before client calls. He didn't look quirky now. He looked comfortable, familiar, like this wasn't the first time. They walked side by side down the sidewalk, too close for strangers, not quite touching, but in sync in that way couples get when they've rehearsed this. She wore a cropped denim jacket I'd never seen. He held the door open as they slipped into a wine bar on the corner. Langston's. Expensive. Private. I gave it 15 minutes. Then I followed. From the outside, the bar looked like a reclaimed library. Arched brick windows, books stacked between bottles behind the counter. I found a gap between the curtains at the far end of the patio and stood just far enough back not to be noticed. And there they were. Claire was leaning across a table, sipping white wine, laughing real laughter, full-bodied, the kind I hadn't heard from her in months. Her hand reached out and touched his forearm. He leaned in. Then she said something I couldn't hear, and he smiled. Not coy, not sheepish, confident. She kissed him. Not a quick peck. Not a clumsy accident. She kissed him like she knew him, like she belonged there, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My stomach turned. Not from shock, from recognition, because I knew that kiss. I'd been on the receiving end of it for years. After they left the bar, they walked down the alley to a parking garage entrance. I didn't follow immediately. I waited for them to be out of view. When I finally reached the garage entrance, I stayed just out of camera range and watched. They reached a car, his silver Audi. He opened the door for her. She climbed in, leaned over, and kissed him again before he rounded the driver's side. I jotted down the plate. AZ tags. I took photos of the garage sign, the time, the entrance, everything. Then I walked to the front desk of the hotel attached to the garage, Redfield at Central. The same hotel from the breakfast receipt I found in our kitchen. I asked for directions to the conference room, pretending I had a vendor meeting. The woman at the front desk smiled and offered me a visitor's map. When she stepped away for a second to answer a phone call, I leaned across the counter and saw the guest list monitor still active on her screen. Room 517. Martinez E. My breath caught. I took a mental snapsh*T. I didn't need to break into the system. I already had the receipt, the key card, the photos, the plate. I walked outside, sat on a bench under a sycamore tree, and stared at my shoes. The laces were fraying. I'd meant to replace them. Claire had told me 3 weeks ago she'd pick some up next time she was out. Probably the same day she was kissing Eli in the studio parking lot. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't know what to do. I'd planned projects with multi-million-dollar budgets, built entire structures from the ground up, coordinated with engineers, zoning commissions, investors. But I had no blueprint for this. No plan for what to say when someone you loved simply stopped being the person you thought they were. I drove home before Claire. I didn't go inside right away. Just sat in the car with the windows down, letting the air move through the cabin, stale and hot. My phone buzzed. Claire. Running late. Laurel and I grabbed a drink. Don't wait up, Red Heart. I stared at the message. Laurel. Again. I should have felt angry. But what I felt, overwhelmingly, was confirmation. Cold, brutal clarity. The kind that rearranges everything. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked inside, plugged in my camera, and downloaded the photos. I time-stamped everything, matched the images to the locations, created a folder, labeled it plainly, Claire, private. Couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed while she showered. She slipped in next to me, smelling faintly of wine and soap, and kissed the back of my shoulder. I pretended to be asleep. She whispered, "Love you," as she turned away. I didn't respond, because by then I knew. It wasn't a theory anymore. It wasn't paranoia or gut instinct or a series of unlucky coincidences. I had seen it with my own eyes, and whatever we were before, that was already gone. After that night, something inside me shut off. Not in a dramatic, angry kind of way. Not even in the heartbreak you read about kind of way. It was quieter than that. Like someone in the back room of my mind had simply flipped a switch labeled, "No more pretending." I didn't confront Claire. Not then. What was the point? I already had the truth. In photos, in timestamps, in the hollowed-out way she kissed my shoulder after coming home late again. I had all the evidence I needed, and yet somehow not a single useful answer. And I was done giving her the benefit of the doubt. Whatever conversation might have come next would just be a performance. A dance of half-denials and misplaced guilt. So I decided to go silent. Not forever. Just long enough to reclaim the space between her lies and my reaction to them. That Sunday night, while Claire was asleep, I packed a bag. Just the essentials. A week's worth of clothes, laptop, charger, spare hard drive, my passport. No idea why I grabbed that. Maybe I liked the finality of it. And my old leather notebook. The one I used to sketch floor plans in before I got too busy for pens. I didn't pack dramatically. No slammed drawers or ripped photos. No music swelling in the background. I moved slowly, deliberately. I was careful not to wake her. She stirred once when I zipped the duffel bag. "Work tomorrow?" she mumbled, half asleep. "Yeah," I whispered. "Early client call." She rolled over, back to sleep. At 2:07 a.m. I walked out of our house. I left the porch light off. I drove 2 neighborhoods over to Mason's place. He was an old friend from undergrad, also an architect, divorced 5 years earlier, and someone who, until recently, I envied for having too much freedom. Now I envied him for something else entirely. Honesty. Even if it came with scars. He opened the door groggy and shirtless. "Jesus, man. You look like hell." "I need a place for a few days," I said. He didn't ask why. He just nodded and opened the door wider. I crashed in his guest room that night. Beige walls. No photos. Spare blanket folded at the foot of the bed. It was nothing like home, and I slept better than I had in months. In the morning, I started building my case. Not a legal one. Not yet. Just a personal record. A defense against the rewriting of history I knew was coming. If Claire ever tried to flip the narrative, to paint me as unstable, untrusting, unavailable, I wanted to be able to point to the timeline and say, no, here. This is where it shifted. This is what happened. This is the story you won't gaslight out of existence. I pulled open folders. I copied **TS. I organized emails, call logs, location histories. I scrolled through 6 months of credit card statements, flagging purchases that didn't match our habits. $184 at a luxury spa on a Tuesday afternoon. A wine bar tab split between 2 cards, boutique hotel stays that overlapped with her so-called client trips. I sorted the cloud storage photos by date, matching images to calendar entries. October 8th, Wellness Expo, Tucson. But in the photos, Claire in Phoenix, in a cocktail bar I'd never been to. November 14th, client strategy huddle, but her Apple Watch log showed a 2-hour hike in South Mountain Preserve, a known makeout spot with no cell reception. December 2nd, yoga studio scouting, but her Uber history had her arriving at Eli Martinez's condo at 6:44 p.m. and leaving just past midnight. I labeled everything by category: misaligned calendar entries, device usage patterns, GPS timeline comparisons, third-party involvements. I wasn't just documenting betrayal. I was building a structure. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like an architect again, methodical, composed, intentional. Later that afternoon, I returned to our house while Claire was still at work. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted access. Quiet, uninterrupted access. I walked from room to room and made an inventory: what was shared, what was mine, what she'd slowly started claiming without asking. The TV was still under my name. So was the fridge, the car lease, our internet plan. I took pictures of receipts, serial numbers, warranties. I reset the password to our shared smart home account, changed the admin on the Wi-Fi, set up 2-factor authentication on all financial tools we used. I didn't delete her access yet. I just wanted to control the locks before the locks controlled me. Then I went upstairs and stood in the bedroom doorway for a long time. It didn't even feel like my space anymore. Her half of the dresser was overflowing with workout sets I'd never seen her wear in the house. The nightstand drawer had a burner phone, an older iPhone with a pink glitter case. No passcode. I scrolled through it briefly. There were messages with one number, unsaved, just a string of digits. The texts weren't explicit, but they didn't have to be. One message stuck with me. Him. Wish you could fall asleep next to me again. Her. Me too. Soon. I emailed the thread to myself, took photos of the screen. Then I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I wasn't ready for her to know I knew. Not yet. When she finally figured it out, I wanted the conversation to be past tense. On the kitchen counter, I left a single note. Folded, handwritten, neutral. Claire, I'll be staying at Mason's for a while. Please don't call. I'll be in touch when I'm ready to talk. Ryan. That night, back at Mason's, I backed everything up onto a private external drive. Labeled it something forgettable. Arch 2020 zip. Then I tucked it into a sleeve in my duffel bag, zipped it shut, and went for a walk. The sky was clear. Stars above the desert skyline like pinholes in black velvet. I don't know why, but I thought of our wedding night. The way she'd kicked off her heels and danced barefoot at the reception. The way she cried during her vows, laughing through the tears. The way I felt completely certain, unshakably in love. Now, just 6 years later, I felt like I was standing outside that version of us, watching it burn from the other side of the glass. And the strangest thing? I didn't feel grief. I felt something closer to relief, because the waiting was over. The hoping, the trying to make sense of lies dressed as affection. That part of our life was already over. And all I had left now was structure, strategy, and the question of what comes next. There's a particular kind of gut punch that comes when you realize betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. That it wasn't just about secrets or int asterisk Macy, but leverage, money, identity. Up until this point, I thought I'd seen the worst of it. The key card, the texts, the late-night lies wrapped in yoga pants and fake meetings. That stuff hurts your heart. Sure, it changes how you sleep, how you breathe, how you look at yourself in the mirror. But this next part, it didn't just make me feel heartbroken. It made me feel violated. It started with a spreadsheet. I'd always been the one to manage our finances. Claire handled day-to-day spending, groceries, subscriptions, app renewals. I took care of long-term planning, mortgage, savings, investments, taxes. We had a system. At least I thought we did. But I hadn't looked at our shared accounts closely in months. Not since Claire insisted we give each other financial breathing room. She wanted to start tracking her own freelance income separately. I didn't push back. I thought I was being respectful. Turns out I was being blind. It was Tuesday night. Mason was at the gym, and I was sitting at his kitchen table with my laptop and a glass of something I couldn't taste. I'd opened our main checking account to transfer some funds for an upcoming project. And that's when I noticed the balance. Lower than expected. A lot lower. I pulled up the transaction history. Over 6 weeks, more than $14,000 had vanished. Spread across multiple withdrawals, wire transfers, mobile payments. At first glance, the amounts didn't seem alarming. $450 here, $1,200 there. But the labels were what caught my eye. Consulting retainer R.S. Design Group. Freelance disbursement CC Studio. Project management fee Claire R. Claire wasn't consulting for anyone. Not in a way that made sense for these payments. And R.S. Design Group sounded suspiciously close to my firm's name, Redstone Design Collective. A bad feeling settled in my stomach. I opened my email and began searching by terms: invoice, contract, signature, Redstone. That's when I found a PDF attachment from Claire's inbox dated 2 months prior. The file was named Freelance Consultant Agreement, Redstone. PDF. I opened it. What I saw hit me harder than any photo of her kissing Eli ever could. It was a full contract, a clean, well-designed freelancer agreement between Redstone Design Collective and Claire R. The document outlined design consultation work, hourly billing, scope of services, and licensing terms. The signatures at the bottom were electronic. One of them was mine, except I'd never signed it. The signature looked right, almost, but I recognized the subtle differences. The pressure curve was off, the baseline uneven. And the license number listed under my name, my actual architectural license, was correct, pulled from official records. My resume, professional stamp, and company EIN were all attached as if I were the authorizing party. Only I wasn't. Claire had forged the contract. She'd created a paper trail linking my firm's identity to freelance services that never existed, and funneled the money into her own accounts. Into what? I wasn't sure yet. I sat there staring at the screen, trying to remember the last time I'd looked through our business expenses. Had she used my credentials to apply for something else? Had she tied my name to more than fake invoices? The answer came the next morning. I checked our joint credit monitoring account, something I'd signed up for back when we were buying the house. We both had access. I hadn't looked at it in over a year. And there it was. Auto lease. 2024 Lexus RX. Cosigner. Ryan S. Except I never signed off on that. And the lessee? Eli Martinez. The car was registered to an LLC. One Claire had listed herself as a managing member of. Studio C. The address was a rented corner space in a co-working building downtown. I ran the name through the city's public registry. The articles of incorporation were recent, filed 3 months ago. Claire was listed as the only manager. That name had never come up once in conversation. I texted Mason, "Need to talk. Urgent." An hour later, we were both sitting at the kitchen island as I laid everything out. Contracts, accounts, receipts, digital paper trails. He leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Man, she didn't just cheat on you. She used you." That word, used, settled in me like a stone. It wasn't jealousy or bitterness anymore. It wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud. Claire had systematically siphoned money from our accounts, falsified a consulting relationship using my professional reputation, then funneled it into a business registered in her name, where she funded projects, spaces, even a vehicle tied to her affair partner. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even clench my fists. I just got quiet. I spent the next 3 hours ting everything. I emailed myself PDFs, created backups, compiled folders, forged contracts, fake payments, Studio C docs, vehicle lease fraud. Then I locked all our joint accounts, froze access to every shared credit card, changed every password, set up alerts on my license to flag any suspicious usage. When I was done, I called Claire. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, you okay?" Her voice was breezy, completely unaware. "I need you to stop using the business card," I said calmly. A pause. "What are you talking about?" "I know about the consulting payments, the forged contract, the Lexus, Studio C." Long silence. Then, "Ryan, I think you're confused." "Don't," I said sharply. "Just don't insult both of us with that. Can we talk about this in person?" "No, you're not going to manipulate your way through this. Not this time." She sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Then she said it was just a shortcut, okay? I needed to get my studio off the ground. I didn't think you'd care. It's not like you even looked at the books. You used my credentials. You signed my name. That's identity fraud, Claire. You're being dramatic. I laughed, cold, tired. You built an entire business on top of a lie. With him. Using my name, my credit, and my goddamn license number. You're blowing this out of. I hung up. I sat back in my chair, letting the silence fill the room again. But this time it wasn't grief sitting with me. It was resolve. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. This was legal. This was career. This was reputation. And if Claire had gambled on my passivity, if she'd bet I would be too hurt or too proud or too scared to act, she was about to lose that bet. Badly. I hired attorney Jenna Cole and handed over everything. Documents, forged contracts, banking records. We froze joint assets, alerted the bank, and filed reports. Her firm launched an internal review. I sent the proof to Eli's wife. Within a week, Claire was suspended. Eli's marriage collapsed, and the studio she built with my identity began to unravel. Fast. Claire's legal team tried painting me as cold and detached. It didn't work. Evidence spoke louder: bank logs, fake contracts, surveillance. The court awarded me the house, restitution for the stolen funds, and barred her from using my credentials. She moved into a rental. I kept the structure, the quiet, the freedom. I didn't mourn what ended. I respected what survived.